lovely Flybridge up top, but there are about 5 or 6 different sets of covers covering the seats, the tables, the helm.
Do you notice I left you to that?
I did notice that. Yeah, funny that. Funny that.
Yeah. Well, here we are again for another episode of Boat Nuts, the podcast about all things boaty. This is Boat Nut number 1, as you know, Hugo and Alex, editor of Motorboat and Yachting magazine, and I'm Alex Smith, Boat Nut number 2, deputy editor of that same magazine. So, Hugo, where are we today?
Well, you'll be surprised to hear we are down at Swanwick Marina.
No, we're not, are we?
Amazingly, we are.
Well, which boat are we on?
So we are on the flybridge of an Azimuth Magellano 60. Very impressive piece of kit. Normally sells for £2.7 million. This one on a special reduced price of £2.15 million. So quite a steal if you're looking for something of this size and style.
Mm-hmm. If you're looking for something slightly more crazy, I suppose, then our boat of the day is going to appeal to you, because we're going to be looking at the Antonio D60 with its quadruple 600 horsepower V12 outboards sitting beneath the sun pad aft.
That sounds like quite a weapon.
It is quite a weapon, quite an interesting boat. It's going to be a fun one to talk about. And our product of the day is going to be binoculars. Now that's a deeply technical subject, so you might discover us skimming a little over the surface and talking about binoculars we've enjoyed in the past.
We will do our best to explain the difference between them and hopefully give you some advice and guidance on what to look for.
Exactly that. And as for the issue of the day, I've forgotten what it is.
I know exactly what it is.
What is it?
Flybridges versus Sportscruisers.
Oh yeah, sitting on a flybridge, very nice, but some people don't really take to them. So we're going to discuss the pros and the cons of each.
Yeah, and a lot of manufacturers offer 2, if not 3 variations on that, whether you want the Sportscruiser, the Flybridge or the Sports Fly. So we'll explain what the differences are, talk you through some of the pros and cons of each of them.
Cool, let's get into it.
Let's do it.
Our boat of the day then is the Antonio D60, and we first clapped eyes on that in Cannes. Did you take a look yourself, Hugo?
I never got to see that. I'm a little bit disappointed because it sounds like quite an extreme machine in some ways.
Yeah, it is. Well, as you know, I think the 37-footer won an MBY award in the past because we were so impressed with that. And this essentially takes the same principle. Now, I should point out that that principle is applied right the way from, I think it's 29 foot is the smallest one. They do an electric 20 footer. Yeah, that's a different form of boat altogether. But the basic principle is plumb bow, vertical hull sides, lots of volume, lots of day space, decent sleeping accommodation as well for the most part. And what's particularly clever is the fact that they use outboard engines, or engine on the smaller model, and they pop it beneath a sunbed, so it's hidden away, and that sunbed extends aft and you get the swim platform full beam after that and the decks and everything. So essentially you're getting the benefits of an outboard engine with the benefits to a degree of an inboard engine, because you get that lovely aft sort of day space. But of course there's compromises to be made there, because when you extend that structure aft of the transom, aft of the propulsive point, then you're introducing a whole load of weight at the back end. So to counteract that, they use hull extensions on either side of the outboard or outboards, essentially like a cat shape. So hull extensions on either side leading
like
up.
A catamaran from the stern.
Yeah, exactly.
So you've got those 2 sort of extended pods that provide presumably extra buoyancy further aft to counteract the weight of the engines.
Exactly right. And that is why, in spite of all the benefits that this brings, and it does bring plenty of benefits, for the most part, boats in the Antonio range, they run bow down a little bit. It's very difficult to get that nose lifting.
In a good way? I mean, too flat or?
Well, I mean, it does depend how you use your boat. If you use your boat in pleasant conditions, there is no compromise. It's fine. It runs flat and that's great. If you want to chase a following sea that's fairly lumpy, and I've never had the chance to do that, but from the look of it, with the absence of a bow flare.
Yeah, so you've got no flare to disperse the water, so you're cutting straight through it.
Yeah. And
you've got a very flat running angle.
With a resolutely.
So the chances are you could get a bit wet if it gets a bit messy.
Get a bit wet
on the smaller boats.
Yeah, and I suspect you could steer a little by the bow if you let the waves kind of rule your day out. So
very sort of modern design. Looks like a fjord essentially, doesn't it?
Yeah,
in some ways, you've got that vertical bow. And essentially that maximises volume. If you haven't got any bow flare, then you've got all that volume inside the shape of the vertical hull sides too. So
exactly that. So when
maximum amount of space on a minimal length.
And even they look pretty cool. I mean, when you see them out of the water at Dusseldorf, they look a little bit ugly because they're so slab-sided, they're so voluminous. You think, oh my God, like when you see a tugboat out of the water, it seems just impossibly ill-proportioned.
Yeah.
See it in the water. See it in the water. And it's a relatively pretty thing.
Yeah.
So basically, that's the principle. And it's been applied, as I say, on a 37. It is an absolutely brilliant boat. And we all loved that. It won an
And what engines did that have? Sort of a couple of 300s or something? Or?
Yeah, something along those lines. And I seem to recall that it was, that it carried out that wonderful De Antonio trick of giving you all kinds of day space, multiple day zones, at least 3, one at the bow, one amidships and one aft because of that covering over the engines. Plus, you go down below and it's almost cathedral-like because of the vertical hull sides. You've got
no engines eating up space down below. You haven't got those long engines. Because a lot of the time, when you look at the sort of the layout drawings of a boat, you'll see how much of the hull volume is given over to engines.
That's
you lose fully a third of the hull space to engines.
That's right.
But if you just got those much smaller outboards, which now they're so good, they're so quiet, so powerful, so refined, and relatively affordable compared to a big diesel engine.
Yeah, exactly. So, and then that's part of what has enabled them to provide all this brilliant sort of sector-leading day space while still giving you brilliant cruising facilities down below.
So what engines does it have on this? Because you've got 60 foot of boat. That's a lot of boat.
Yeah, that's a mighty boat. It's actually the biggest outboard powered boat I've been on. I'm sure there are loads in America that would beat that. But it's got a quad rig of 600 horsepower V12s under that sunbed. Oh. So that's a mighty wedge of welly. And we took it out and we had a play, and the results are interesting. But before we get to that, let's just talk about the finer elements of this design. So it looks exactly as you would expect a De Antonio to look. So when you're looking at it, you're thinking, they haven't dumbed this down because it's 60 foot. It's exactly the same. Yeah. All the things we discussed, they're there. The configuration at the back end, exactly the same. All the elements we discussed, they're there. A clever little platform that comes up and down into the water so you can enjoy that properly, use it as a little beach club. A lovely big sunpad above those engines, storage underneath the engines, plenty of space for a tender as well, a good size of tender.
Yeah, you get a decent one of that.
Yeah, and then leading on to a cockpit with lovely sociable seating area. So already the day spaces, they're flying. It's
so
looking
great.
They
put it on a photocopier and put plus 150%.
Plus, yeah.
But it works, it looks good.
It does, right? Yeah, it does. It does look good in the water, yes.
Okay.
And then if you ignore the saloon for a second, just head straight up those side decks to the bow. Well, again, you've got, because they carry the beam a long way forward there, you've got a lovely big bow lounge as well. And you can spec that bow lounge with a jacuzzi, a hot tub.
What?
So quite cool, isn't it?
Okay, forward bow lounge on a 60-foot boat with a jacuzzi.
Yeah, you've got to love that.
That's strong.
Yeah, that is strong, isn't it? So tremendous start.
Yeah.
So now if we just return to the saloon, pop inside. Well, what we get there is kind of a two-tier affair. So the lower level, when you go in, you've got a pair of settees facing inboard. And you've got drop-down windows, huge drop-down windows in the superstructure on both sides.
That makes a massive difference.
Yeah.
Because they can, saloons get pretty hot. They're a bit like a greenhouse, aren't they, after a while? If you haven't got either air conditioning or drop-down windows.
Yeah, I suspect that air conditioning is probably a must on this boat.
You probably need both. But when it's in that kind of shoulder season or in the UK, perfect, just to drop the windows, have a bit of natural flow of air through it. It's just what you need.
That's exactly right. And then on the upper tier, we've got a central helm with 3 seats raised a little and a lovely big screen that's set forward. It's kind of in the same vein, actually, as the Omicron. Do you remember the helm set back and then a sort of cathedral-like double height space in front of that? So everything's wide open and you're bang in the middle. So it's a great place to drive.
It always feels quite good when you're slightly raised above the rest of the congregation.
It does. It does. And actually, it's relatively practical too. You've got side doors on both sides of the helm station, and you've also, quite interestingly, got lovely big sunroof just aft of the helm, and on either side of that you've got bookcases, and those bookcases double as ladders, so you can climb up and out of that sunroof, look forward, and you've got a sunbed up on the rooftop
ahead of the sunroof.
Yeah.
That's clever. Okay.
It is.
Is that how you access it? Then you climb up through the sunroof rather than over the back?
Yeah, exactly that. Weird, you climb up through the sunroof via those shelving units, and that means it's not for the elderly or the infirm or the particularly young.
Well, you've also got a sunbed on the back, haven't you? So
there is that. It's just when I was climbing up, I mentioned to you in relation to galleon how sometimes when you really push a design principle, sometimes it doesn't. It's not perfectly resolved, but it's welcome that they've been that brave anyway. So on this, the rails on the bookcases, you can't quite get your fingers behind them. It's quite awkward. It's totally vertical, so it's a bit of an effort. Particularly, let me tell you, when you're carrying a GoPro.
Trying to film.
Yeah, that's right. And when you get up there, you've got the sunbeds, and that's great, but you've got the vast gaping chasm that is the sunroof directly behind you, and no means of actually cordoning you off from tumbling back down into the saloon.
Where you want to take a step back at the wrong moment.
Which I nearly did and panicked a little. Heart missed a beat.
I like the sound of having such a convertible space, though. Because if you've got two opening doors, big opening sunroof, two opening windows, it gives you most of the sort of benefits of an open boat, but also the ability to shut it off when the weather turns a bit.
Yeah, so you've got to say day space is absolutely nailed on this boat, and then you look ahead of the helm down into that double height space. Well, on the port side you've got a galley of reasonable size, 4.5, that can be closed off and used by crew. So that makes a bit of sense. To the right hand side of that, you've got a kind of atrium, a space to go forward to the bow cabin, to go aft to the owner's cabin, or to go to starboard where the heads compartment is, the day heads is.
So only 2 cabins on a 60-foot boat?
Yeah, but you can have 3.
Okay. If you have do you have a galley up then? Or?
Well, you split the bow cabin, which is quite generous, into a pair of twins, and then you've got your full beam owner's cabin amidships. Yeah. But I was thinking about the Omicron when I was looking at this double height space and thinking that big kind of hole ahead of the helm, it just doesn't feel properly utilised to me. It's an empty space, and I'm thinking there's got to be something you can do with it. It's difficult because you've got 3 doors essentially to the 3 spaces plus the galley on the port side tucked away behind a bulkhead. But I feel like more could be done with that space somehow, and maybe
quite a different style of boat though. I mean, the Omicron is slow, long range cruising yacht, relatively small engines. This, if I've done my sums right, has 2,400 horsepower. Is that a good thing? How fast does it go?
Well, that is a good question. Now, with 10 people on board, we were travelling at 47 knots.
47 knots?
That's rapid for a 60-footer, isn't it?
60-foot boat?
Yeah.
My goodness.
Yeah.
And any idea what kind of fuel consumption of that?
Well, we ain't going to talk about the top end. Let's talk about the cruising figures.
Okay.
When you're cruising, and it's a relatively, broad cruising band, we were seeing about 12 litres per mile in total.
Burning 12 litres of gas for 1 nautical mile.
1 beautiful mile.
That's reasonably punchy.
It's juicy, but it's a juicy boat. It is what it is. It's not pretending to be otherwise. So we're all right with that. And actually, in terms of the driving dynamics, if you play with the legs a little bit, try to get that bow up, you struggle. It is like that. It's got the same kind of drive.
Does it feel like you need to?
Yeah, I mean, I pursued a few wakes from passing ferries and stuff, and I tried to plough through them. I didn't try to plough through them. I tried to scoot over them. But you do wash off a bit of the pace with the nose just interacting more than you perhaps like with these water shapes. So I suspect in a following sea it would be as we speculate it's going to be. But in sensible conditions, it flies, it runs flat, it's comfortable, it's refined.
4 V12s, and don't those V12s have gearboxes, don't they? So you can actually have a low speed and a high speed ratio.
Yeah, exactly that, which is a lot of fun in its own right. It kind of messes with your fuel flow figures quite a lot, doesn't it? Because
you suddenly shift into top gear.
That's right. You get an extra 15 knots for
like an old school overdrive.
More fuel. It is.
You've been in a car with an overdrive.
That's
fun, isn't it?
Isn't it? And just calling it overdrive makes it cool.
Makes it sound way cooler than just having an extra gear.
Yeah, exactly that. So I've got to say, although it's not going to be for everyone, none of their boats are for everyone. No. I've got such respect for the fact they've taken the De Antonio principle, the award-winning, much-loved De Antonio principle, and they've made a 60-footer use it.
It's an impressive achievement. I do slightly question how many people in Europe are going to buy a boat with quad 600 horsepower, petrol-powered V12 outboards. To me, it makes more sense as a smaller boat where outboards are a more sort of natural choice. You're not burning quite so much fuel. There aren't so many diesel sort of alternative options. But yeah, fair play to them. Good on them. I mean, a 60-foot boat that does 47 knots. I mean, if you like your speed.
Well, it's Carlos Sainz bought that boat. So that was his that we were on board. So he knows a bit of speed, doesn't he?
Yeah. Well, that makes sense. If you're a Formula One driver and you want a boat that lives up to the kind of thrills you get on the racetrack, then fair play.
But I suspect even Carlos Sainz himself could not elevate that bow.
No, possibly not. And even he might bulk at the fuel consumption. But
yes.
Nevertheless.
In any case, well done, Antonio. Yep, not for everyone, but a lot of fun.
Yeah. I shall take a closer look the next time I see you.
You make sure you do. Now, our product for today is Marine Binoculars, and I intimated that these are quite complex and complicated. I can't, that's how complicated they are. Bits of kit.
Yeah.
So we need to run through the basic numbers so people understand what that's about, don't we?
Yeah, because you see, when you look on the website or whatever, you see all this 30 by 7 or 7 by 30. I can't even remember which it is. What does that actually mean?
Exactly. Thank you for asking, Hugo. I now return to my notes studiously, and I will tell you exactly what they mean. Right, the first number, the 7, is your power of magnification.
Okay.
The second number is the diameter of the objective lens. So that's basically the amount of light you're letting in. So 7 times 30 means 7 times magnification with a 30mm objective lens. Okay. And there's an equation. So if you take the second figure, the 30, and divide it by the first, the magnification, the 7, you get the exit pupil, which is 4.3 millimetres in the case of these fictional 7x30s we're talking about.
And what does that mean?
That is the relative brightness. Now,
so the bigger the number, the brighter
they are.
The smaller the number, the darker.
Yeah, exactly that. But apparently, a fully dilated human pupil is only capable of appreciating an exit pupil of 7 millimetres.
Okay.
So,
but the closer it is to that, the better, essentially, if you can.
Yeah, exactly that. Yeah. Particularly for marine use. So critically, with marine use, you don't want too much magnification, and you don't want a small objective diameter. You want bright, and you want a sensibly magnified image that isn't too magnified, because if it is on a moving platform, you're simply all over the place and you can't get a grip of what you're trying to look at.
Yeah, that's the day. If you go in too tight, and you're always moving to some degree, obviously the boat's moving, even your own hands are moving.
Yeah.
So it just becomes too shaky to actually see anything at a higher magnification.
Exactly. So
although
most people will say, and I'd certainly say 7, but most people will say a maximum magnification of 7 or 8 and a minimum objective lens of 25 mils.
Okay.
For the brightness you need. And you need that in dim light to distinguish on a distant buoy between greens and reds and everything else. So that makes loads of sense. And a couple of models of binocular I particularly want to mention, but you go. You're about to say
I was just going to say that you can now get a stabilised pair of binoculars. So they have inbuilt stabilisation that will, I'm not quite sure what magic they use, but I think it, much like a phone, has a sort of an inbuilt accelerometer, so it can tell which way it's moving up and down, and can actually tweak the prisms inside the lenses to stabilise the image to a degree. So obviously the downsides are that it needs some kind of battery power to run them, and you don't want your batteries running out at the crucial time.
Yeah, exactly.
And I'm told it's much harder to make a really robust waterproof design, because clearly when you're on a boat you spend an awful lot of time in a very aggressive, salty, humid environment. It's very easy for the lenses to fog up. So the other thing to look for, I'm told, is to have nitrogen filled, so you have dried nitrogen filled in between the lenses, so there's no danger of fogging up in sort of sudden temperature changes and so on.
Yeah, exactly. So it's interesting you talk about batteries and whether or not that's a practical issue for a pair of binoculars. When I bought my first pair of Steiners, and it's Steiners I want to talk about, because I tried them in the Navy. They had them on the bridge of warships. I remember looking at them thinking, oh my God, that's a piece of kit. I love this. They were 7x50. They were publicly available binoculars, but I remember looking at them thinking,
are they massive?
They're not huge. I mean, they're manageable, handheld, So 7 times magnification, lovely and bright. 7x50, exit pupil around about 7, as much as the eye can take. I remember looking through these and thinking, these are amazing. When I leave the Navy, which I did shortly afterwards, I'm getting myself a pair of Steiners, and I started off with 7x30s, which are relatively affordable. And I just remember thinking, my God, the colour rendition, the quality of image, it's absolutely perfect on a boat. Absolutely superb. But there is a flagship Steiner binocular, which is 7x50 with an integrated compass.
What does that cost then?
That's about 1,800 quid.
Oh my goodness.
But what amazed me about my first pair of Steiners even then was going back to the battery issue, I was convinced there must be a battery in it, because every time I put them to my eyes, everything was crystal clear focused.
Yeah.
But apparently that's total
almost
nonsense.
Brighter than it looked outside. It's like it sort of hoovers the light in.
There was no need for me to do anything. So this got to be autofocus. So where's the battery to enable the autofocus as on the camera? Well, apparently these binoculars use such a depth of field that everything, basically from 30 or 35 foot to infinity, is crystal clear, ready to look at.
So you don't actually need to focus them yourself.
Which is a spectacular thing.
Yeah.
So I've only ever tried a pair of these Steiner Commander 7x50s.
The Rolls Royce of binoculars.
German engineering. Yeah. They know what they're doing. It's just spectacular, and the build quality is superb. They just last you. It's one of those purchases you buy it once and you've got it for the rest of your life. I was going to bring mine in today, but I say you've got it for the rest of your life. I bloody lost them, and I don't know where they are.
Or somebody's nicked them, probably more likely.
Possibly.
You have a look on eBay, you'll probably find someone selling them.
Yeah, and I will buy them as well because I want them back. So I'm a huge fan of those, but I've got to say, and I'm quite on board with this idea, on relatively small boats, where you do need a set of binoculars just to see what's what, and it's certainly on relatively slow boats when you want to check buoyage and so on, a monocular can work quite well, because then you can use the big lenses. You can get all that light and the relevant magnification, but you don't have your
bulkiness.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's much more compact. You can tuck it away in your fowlies, and it makes you look like kind of a modern day Admiral Nelson, which
these can always be a problem. That's the other thing you need if you're a spectacle wearer, though, because you can, if you're just long sighted or short sighted, you can usually refocus the actual eyepieces, and then you don't need to wear your glasses, worth knowing, unless you have an astigmatism. And of course I do have an astigmatism, and you can't correct that through the binoculars. So if you are going to need to wear your specs and use a pair of binoculars, then I'm told that there is a critical measurement, which is the
eye relief.
That's the number. That is the number. And I'm told that you should really have an eye relief at least 15 millimeters. And the eye relief is the point at which the binoculars focus the image on your eye. Yeah. And if it's too short, then you're not going to have room to wear your specs and get a focused image. So you want an eye relief of at least 15 mil, preferably a bit more than that, which will mean that you can wear your specs and look through the lenses and still get a nice sharp image in your pupil. So something to look out for if you are, like me, a specky git.
Yes. Something else to notice, to mention, I should say, is these binoculars, like the Commanders I mentioned, the Steiners, with a built-in compass. Well, it says don't rely on that for navigation, and so you don't, and I wouldn't. But I've had a look through various binoculars with built-in compasses, and they give you kind of crosshairs with the figures of it.
Makes it look like you're a sniper or something.
It makes you
feel U-boat commander.
Great. And I've compared that to actual compasses, dedicated compasses.
Accurate.
It's as accurate as makes no difference as far as I can tell. Don't use them for navigation. But
they probably have to put it on there. It's one of those sort of requirement safety things just to make sure that when you do crash into the buoy, you can't then sue the binocular manufacturer.
Exactly that.
But you can get a decent pair. There are sort of mates like Silver and so on that you can buy a pretty decent pair of waterproof binoculars for 100 quid or thereabouts. So you don't have to go the full Steiner, but if you can afford it, everybody
and in all cases, and we'll wrap it up, but in all cases, whatever your budget, don't invest in a regular pair of land-based hunting binoculars or anything. Take them out on your boat. Get marine-specific ones. Yeah. Not just for the limited magnification, but also for its capacity to withstand the marine environment. It's so important.
It is properly harsh, and it will cause all kind of havoc with a pair of binoculars that is not waterproof or salt-proof or nitrogen-filled. The last thing you need is a foggy pair of binoculars when you're trying to work out what the buoy is up in front and what it's trying to tell you. We'll
move on to our issue of the day, which is, I find this one quite interesting. Flybridges, yes or no?
Yeah, well, Flybridges versus Sportscruiser, if we're making a comparison.
Exactly. I've got a... actually, you're right, because
people
very
have
much depends
strong
on the
opinions
boat,
about it.
They do.
Yeah, but a lot of manufacturers will offer both. So, somebody like Princess will offer you can get an F65, a V65, or actually something called an S65, but we'll deal with that at the end. But first up, so basic differences between a Flybridge and a Sportscruiser. So Sportscruiser essentially is a 2-deck boat. You've got the lower deck with your accommodation in, and then you've got your main deck, which has your saloon or your cockpit and all that. A Flybridge essentially has another deck on top of that. If it's a Flybridge design, it's open to the elements. It might have another hardtop on top of that, providing shade, but essentially it's an upper deck on top of the main saloon where you've got extra seating, sunbathing, and usually a second outside helm position. So number of sort of fairly obvious pros and cons, but I think worth pointing them out because people don't always sort of get what some of the disadvantages of a Flybridge are. Obviously, in terms of the pros, you've got a whole extra deck, usually for not a great deal more money. You mentioned something earlier. It was only a sort of relatively small percentage of the overall value.
It is honestly on any sports cruiser or coupe where there's been the option of a Flybridge, and this is any I've done in 20 years, I've never seen a Flybridge cost more than 6% of the overall package price of that, or add 6% to the overall package price. And actually, the Nord Star I looked at in the 49 I looked at in Southampton Boat Show, we talked about that in the last podcast, that added just 3.8% to the package price of that boat for an additional deck.
I look forward to hundreds of listeners texting in to tell you that how come their Princess cost 15% more. But anyway, the point is it's not a huge amount more in terms of what you actually gain for it, which is a whole lot more seating space. You normally get somewhere to eat outside. There's normally a nice dining space. You usually get some sunbeds up there. But crucially, I think, is that outside helm position.
Especially when you're parking in a busy arena.
Yeah. You get better visibility all the way round. You also get the extra elevation, so you just get better views all round. You can see further over the horizon, and it means there's more spaces for guests to hang out. If you've got a boat full of people, you can have some people in the aft cockpit, some people on the foredeck lounge, some people up on the Flybridge. It just means you've got sort of more little breakout zones that people can hang out.
Yeah, and it's not just separation from your mates and your guests and your family, is it? It's separation from the pontoon.
Absolutely.
The rest of the
when
world.
You're moored up in the marina, it's rather nice to sit up on top, gives you a bit more privacy.
Yeah, you're not overlooked. It's important, I think.
But that does come with a few potential disadvantages. Obviously, the boat is taller, it has a higher air draft, so you might be limited in terms of where you can travel inland.
Sometimes limited in terms of style as well, aren't you?
Well, definitely. You've got it's often not quite as pretty. You've got issues if you want to sort of trail it around on the road. Obviously, you're not going to trail it behind your own car, but if you want to get it sort of shipped down to the Med, you might have to go via the sea rather than by land because it won't fit under the road bridges. You've got a bit more windage on board, so you tend to get blown around a bit more in the marina. It can be a little bit harder to berth. You've got more weight up top, so it's a little bit more prone to rolling.
And actually, in terms of the handling, it's worth mentioning to people who haven't driven the same boat with and without a fly that it's quite significant when you elevate that weight. The speed with which a boat will recover from a heeling moment is delayed substantially.
Because you've got a lot of weight that is sort of pulling it from side to side. And that will affect sort of things like the sea keeping, might reduce your performance a bit because it just tends to be a slightly heavier boat, slightly less nimble handling again because of that extra weight and the centre of gravity. So they're not major problems, but they're just things to think about. And of course, it means you've got a load more steps around the boat, which might be fine for you, may not be so good for your elderly parents or your young children. So some sort of pros and cons to think about at least before you definitely decide that that's the better way to go.
One of the cons I hear about the most, because I went to test I think it's a Jeanneau Mary Fisher 1295, and the 1095 is available fly or Sportscruiser. And I went to test the coupe version of the 1295, and I'd driven the 1295 fly. And I thought, this is a great boat. And I've been asked back halfway across Europe to test the same boat without a Flybridge. I'm thinking, what is the point? Who's going to want it? Who's going to want this? I spoke to several people, and the chief point of difference, the chief critique of the Flybridge is they just can't be asked with looking after the seating and the covers and the messing around.
Absolutely right.
I just want to get on board and leave.
Yeah. And that is, again, a very obvious sort of pro and cons. I mean, even on the boat we're on here, lovely Flybridge up top, but there are about 5 or 6 different sets of covers covering the seats, the tables, the helm.
Do you notice I left you to that?
I did notice that. Funny that.
Yeah.
So, alternatively, Sportscruiser, that has its own sort of sets of pros and cons. I think from a plus point, it's obviously lower centre of gravity, tends to be a bit sort of prettier and looks a bit sportier.
And also a key difference here is the fact you can use that roof structure for all sorts of stuff. So you can have skylights, you can have opening sunroofs, you can get ventilation and light. It feels more open.
Absolutely.
And when you got the Flybridge on there, it's inevitably hemmed in to a degree, isn't it? It's darker.
Yeah, a little bit darker, and it's just sort of hotter and feels a bit stuffier, and it's harder to get ventilation. And
that's right.
Well, funnily enough, at Cannes, Princess launched its V65, and they already do a Flybridge version and a Sportbridge version. I thought, really, is there any point in having a Sportscruiser version too? Then I saw the size of the sunroof, and I thought, yes, there really is. Well, it is a prettier boat. It's just lower, sleeker, looks a bit sexier. The sunroof is huge.
Yeah, biggest one you've seen, you say.
All the way back, right over the whole of the sort of forward seating area, and it just transforms the way it feels inside.
Well, it's an important point because you mentioned the Sportsbridge, and that is kind of a halfway house because it mitigates some of the issues people have with the Flybridge. So you talk about the windage and the weight and the style, or with a Sportbridge, which is usually smaller, further aft, set down a little lower. You minimise that vertical elevation. You still get a fly, just a reduced size of one. You minimise the weight up top. You sharpen up the handle. You sharpen up the looks. So you kind of, if you're torn, you kind of get the best of both worlds.
It's a little bit of the best of both worlds, and you get that crucial upper helm position, which is such a nice thing to have. And the stylists have become so good at almost sort of minimising the impact on the profile because they sort of drop it down a little bit into the sort of structure.
They've got to be clever though, haven't they?
They have got to be clever.
But with that, not just stylistically, but also in terms of the headroom at the aft end of the saloon on the main deck, because sometimes that can get pinched in a little. So the deck heights have to be bang on there, don't they?
Yeah, and Princess are very good at that. And the S65 is a very good example of that. It looks almost as sort of low and sleek as the V65. You still get a small sunroof, nothing like the same size, but you still get a small one up front and a surprisingly decent Sportsbridge. And because they're sort of set down within there, it still feels quite a safe space. You know, in the early days, you tended to slightly feel like you were sort of perched on top of the roof rather than sort of securely set down inside it. And now they've got much better. They just look better. You feel nice and secure in there. And you kind of get the best of both worlds. You just don't have that really kind of convertible feeling of the V65 where you pull the sunroof back and it genuinely feels like you're pretty much on an open boat, because all you can see up above you is sun and sky, and you get that wonderful feeling of sort of fresh air all around you. But it's still every bit as smart as this saloon, effectively, because you can close it all up very quickly. Couple of seconds, the sunroof closes, lock the doors at the back, safe and secure. You haven't really got any covers to worry about. Maybe something on the aft cockpit, but very little. And the other clever thing they keep doing now is having, with either sort of lift up windows or drop down windows and bifold doors or sort of 3 or 4 section doors, you can really link the sort of enclosed saloon area with the open aft cockpit and get that wonderful sort of full length inside outside feel all on one level. Another really major benefit, and that's another reason that people buy them, is they just don't want loads of different levels. And if you've got absolutely no steps all the way from the transom right through to the forward helm position, keeps everybody together. If you've got sort of young kids, it means you can keep an eye on them. You're not driving the boat up top and wondering if your kids are still in the cockpit or whether they fell out about 5 miles back.
That is something to mention, actually. If you're going for a Flybridge, then it's worth looking for one that surrounds the helm station with a bit of companion seating, so you can sit there on a long passage and you can see your kids, where they are. You can be accompanied by the family. It's fun for you, fun for you. At the same time, it's just more secure in it because you know where your family is.
The other thing is Sportscruisers, quite often they will have a big sunbed with a garage for the tender at the back. Most Flybridges don't have that. They might have a lazarette or a crew cabin or something, but you usually end up having the tender on an aft platform. Just doesn't look quite so pretty. It's nice to have it tucked away under the sunbed. So lots of different pros and cons. And I don't have a particularly strong opinion either way, to be honest. I can see the benefits of all of them. And I think it's very much what suits your style of boating, what age your kids are or your parents are, whether you're particularly fussed about the way it handles, how quickly it goes, or it's largely a matter of style. I think some people just go, I like the look of a long, sexy sports boat, sports cruiser, in the same way that you might buy a sports car.
That's right. And actually, I think in the past, the Flybridge cruiser has tended to be the particular form of boat that attracts the gin palace comments, isn't it?
Well, it does.
People shy away in the past from that sort of sense of ostentation. Yeah. I don't think that's relevant anymore.
No, not at all. I think people are well past that. Yeah. You know, all these boats are fabulously expensive, amazingly luxurious, and you know what? I'll happily drink a gin or tonic on two. I can live with that.
I've got no problem. Gin, fabulous. Palace, fabulous. What's the problem with sticking those two things together, eh?
But I do think it's interesting that, you know, Princess bothered to make all three of those variants. Yeah. A Flybridge, a sports cruiser and a sports fly. And there's a market for all of them. They all use the same hull. They all have the same accommodation below decks. So it's really just a matter of personal choice of whether you want that extra deck up top, whether you want the big sunroof, whether you're sold on the looks.
Brilliant. Okay, well, look, tell us what you favour and why. Tell us which boats you particularly enjoyed, why you might or might not favour a Flybridge. We've certainly told you what we reckon, but we're going to be quiet for a bit, so don't expect an immediate response. We're giving this a little bit of a break, aren't we, until we can come up with some fresh subject matter.
Leave them hanging.
Yeah, you have.
Yeah. But we will be back.
We will be back in the new year, I think.
Absolutely.
After the Dusseldorf Boat Show.
Yeah, we'll have plenty more things to talk about then. We just feel we need a little bit of a breather, freshen up, come up with some new topics. So do make some suggestions and we'll be back and hopefully keep you entertained in the new year.
Fantastic. We look forward to it.
We'll see you then.